looks like the lesbian space witches only had the power of one season. In a plot twist as shocking and surprising as the one that takes place in the show, Star Wars The Acolyte has not been renewed for a season 2 on Disney+. And some people, mainly leftists, are not happy about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. We're keeping you up to date with everything that's happening out in the culture war, and I guess Star Wars The Acolyte is somewhat involved in that, and we will talk about Star Wars The Acolyte, I guess no more after this, as it has not been greenlit for a season 2, and I gotta say, I'm pretty happy about it. I subjected myself to season 1 to analyze it on this channel, and I don't want to have to do that again. But many people are having meltdowns, and by many people, I don't know, I guess it's a few loud people on the left that really loved this show and everything that it was proclaiming throughout the series, that is the politics rather than the storyline, and they're deciding to put these opinions out online over why they think the show is canceled. They're blaming bigotry, they're blaming hatred, they're saying this is racism at play. Let's read through some of the meltdown tweets and responses from Star Wars The Acolyte not getting a season 2. Hashtag The Acolyte getting canceled because incels couldn't handle a sexy black girl and a sexy Asian man serving evil villainous romance. At everyone celebrating The Acolyte getting canceled, I will place a curse on your entire bloodline. I hate this. Leslie Headland, the first woman to create a Star Wars series, tapped into something fresh and exciting in the fandom with season 1, and while I had my notes, she absolutely deserved a second season to let those ideas cook. We all lose with this. Me after The Acolyte cancellation, and they're showing the little picture of Master Torben committing suicide. That's actually pretty good. Okay, Brooke, I'll take it. Ooh, and this one's a heavy hitter. I'm really tired of sharing the franchise I love with toxic, misogynistic, immature racists and constantly seeing them be catered to, even though the rest of us have been here all along wanting new and fresh stories that connect deeply with all of us. And this next one seems to be a common thread. We've already read one like this where they're saying people are upset that there's people of color featured in this show. They canceled The Acolyte because they couldn't stand the sight of two hot people of color holding hands, but I will always remember. Scotty says, so this is how creativity dies, with thunderous applause. Scotty, I gotta be real with you. Creativity died at Disney a very, very long time ago. So you guys get the general sentiment. A lot of people are extremely happy about this show not being greenlit for a season 2, and those that aren't are accusing those that are of racism, bigotry, hatred, misogyny, you know, all the different isms and phobias that we throw at people these days. But the reality is there were a lot of things wrong with Star Wars The Acolyte, from the lead up to the show itself, to the aftermath, and let's unpack that really quickly, just so you know where some people may be coming from. The lead up to this show was tumultuous. You had showrunner and director Leslie Headland talking about how this was going to be the first queer Star Wars story.
When I saw Frozen as a grown-ass woman, I cried through the entire movie. There was just something about the relationship between the sisters, the like de-villainization of the classic kind of fairy tale bad guy, you know, the concept of true love being between two sisters and not a heterosexual relationship. Like it just destroyed me completely. And I thought, gosh, you know, I would love to make something like this that is, you know, for lack of a better term, Disney, meaning it's something that like my parents would have allowed me to see when I was younger as a queer person.
Gotcha.
But I would have been able to understand as a queer person, and I think I would have had a completely different life. And so I really was inspired by it and was like, God, I would love to make a story like this.
And in interviews with lead actress Amanda Stenberg, they were saying this is going to be the gayest Star Wars ever.
I want to ask you both because this is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable margin. And are you excited about that? Are you bracing yourself?
Star Wars. Not the
It's pretty gay, let's be honest.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
Okay.
I mean, have you seen the fits? We'd be like, look how gay this is, and then send each other a reference photo.
And are you telling me, with a straight face, that C-3PO is straight?
They're a couple. That's what I think.
It was made abundantly clear that this was not going to necessarily be a Star Wars story, but a Leslie Headland story. She was going to insert the parts of herself and her identity and her political agenda that she saw fit to implement in Star Wars in order to push a certain message, and then she was going to sprinkle in a little bit of George Lucas's original IP. So it was never a Star Wars story to begin with. And I think fans of Star Wars could feel that in the lead up to this show coming out. You're not necessarily painting the best image of season 1 1 if this is the agenda that you're leading with. But still, many decided to wait for season 1 to be available for streaming on Disney Plus, and they watched with an open mind and an open heart, and then they were stabbed in that open heart like Master and Dara in the first episode. There was bad writing and girl bosses and space fires and lesbian witch cults and immaculate conceptions between two women and they-them pronouns and an obvious Sith Lord plot twist. The list goes on and on and on. On top of that, if you are a true Star Wars fan, there were many things that contradicted Star Wars canon and lore all throughout this season. So the problem isn't that people didn't watch the show when they're making snap judgments. The problem also isn't that when people watched the show, they were somehow upset about hot people of color holding hands. The problem isn't that they're misogynistic, racist, judgmental, prejudice. The problem is the show wasn't good. The problem is that season 1 was written and directed through a completely different framework than the rest of the Star Wars franchise. Leslie Headland said that this show isn't about good or bad, it's about power and who's allowed to use it. She reframes the Jedi as an oppressive police force that is terrorizing different planets. She says that the Force was appropriated by the Jedi and was once known as the thread. She's writing girl boss feminism into every episode, even though George Lucas himself states that Star Wars had girl bosses and had true female representation.
They said, there's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was? She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything on this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything, trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. She's the hero of the movie. It's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Even though she has Jedi on her side, she was still a hero prime mover. You can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. They can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's their brains and their ability to think and plan and be logistical. That's what the hero is.
And when people catch on to this and realize that this is the place that stories go to die, they are then called racist bigots. Please make it make sense. And if it wasn't the lead up to the show or the show itself that made you dislike Star Wars The Acolyte, it might have been the aftermath of season 1, where we got these accusations of being racist and misogynistic. We even got a response from Amanda Stenberg herself, the star actress in Star Wars The Acolyte, as she was responding to backlash from things she said in prior interviews, as well as all the different themes that people picked up on in Star Wars The Acolyte.
Speak truth to power, keep an eye out for you silly racists. And now they use it to describe anything they threaten by. Remember when Gambino put it in the zeitgeist? It was all about the people recognizing bigotry.
So yeah, Star Wars The Acolyte did not need a season 2. If I'm surprised or shocked in any way, maybe I'm surprised that Disney didn't go ahead and greenlight this show for a season 2, given their track record with the creation of new stories. They seemingly don't care that their stories are flopping over and over again, and always decide to put forward new projects that the general public is telling them they don't want. We saw it with Peter Pan and Wendy, She-Hulk, The Marvels. We're going to see it with Snow White in 2025. Disney's got a bad rep these days. And even with all of those poor decisions, they've decided somehow not to make the poor decision of creating a second season of this show. I guess the views just don't lie. And many are going to blame this on review bombing and all these different things and accuse people who are anti-woke of ruining what could be a fresh new storyline for Star Wars. But the reality of it is, if Disney had the numbers, they'd make a season 2, and they just didn't have them. So it turns out that maybe a queer story written from Leslie Headland's perspective that abandons George Lucas's IP is not what Disney needs right now. And maybe we should look back at the classic Star Wars stories, figure out what was done right with them, and continue on that track. A good story is a good story. It taps into deeper human truths or universal ideas. It takes us on a journey that ebbs and flows as we watch and relate and connect with characters. Maybe we don't connect with them at all, but we're so invested in the story that we want to see what happens. Leslie Headland decided that was not her goal. She didn't want to tell a Star Wars story. She wanted to tell her story. And you know what? She would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for those meddling pieces of cringy dialogue, the poorly written characters, the obvious plot holes, and the just all-around hollow storytelling that we watched play out in season 1. And this will go down in her story as one of the worst Star Wars iterations to ever be created. The left will get away with injecting their agenda into pieces of media when they realized that the agenda has to come secondary to the piece of media. And lucky for us, they haven't figured that out yet. So we're just getting these horrible pieces of poorly written propaganda that we can see through. And as soon as they catch on to the idea of true storytelling being the primary driver of media, we are in for a ride. But so far, we're not there yet. So we're not getting a season 2. I don't know how to feel here. I don't know that this is necessarily a win for Disney because I don't believe they've truly learned their lesson. We still have the Leslie Headlands and Kathleen Kennedys of the world running around making decisions within Hollywood. And until we take care of those individuals, I don't think much is gonna get better. But those are just my thoughts. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, I encourage healthy debate. So if you disagree with anything said in this video, duke it out, but do so respectfully. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we post a video for you guys, which is every day, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.